Morning, champions. We're going to spend today on our first set of skill set videos and skill building videos talking about how to handle objections. It's a pretty important subject to talk about, whether you're in my business or any type of sales business, or whether you're a parent or a manager or a leader of a team. You're going to run into objections. So I'm going to give you a formula on how to handle that. So stay with me. So we're going to start asking the question, what is an objection? See, when you're in any type of relationship or a sales process where you're trying to move a product or a process forward, you're going to run into this thing called an objection. And it's pretty important to understand what it is. So what is an objection? Let's say that you're asking a question to move that process forward. So it could be something as, would you like to buy my product? This is, do you want to get together for dinner? Would you be able to help me out with, fixing my car? Whatever it is. If you're in a relationship, you're asking a question to someone, you're asking for help to move some sort of situation or process forward, and the answer that you are looking for is a straightforward yes. However, that's not the answer that you get. And so an objection is any answer other than the answer that you were looking for. So if you're looking for a yes and you get a yes but, or they say, could you tell me a bit more about it? Or, I'm busy, or anything of that nature, it's not the answer that you were looking for, you've now arrived at an objection and it needs to be handled. So I'm going to give you the formula right away. But before I give you the formula, I want you to understand how important this is. You see, objection handling is so crucial in what we do because it's how we communicate. And if you get this thing down, you're going to become an impressive, a powerful communicator. You're going to be able to solve people's problems. You're going to be a solution provider. And you're going to be able to have better relationships with your children, with your spouse, with the people around you. This is going to transform your business. It is such an undervalued skill, and it is so highly effective once you practice it and you become good at doing it. So here it is. The formula is: number one, you have to acknowledge the objection. Number two, you have to have a short response that satisfies the question they asked or satisfies the objection. Short response that satisfies it. And three, most important, you need to end with a question. So let's just unpack each of those things. Number one, acknowledging. We live in a world where everybody's plugged in. You walk down the street, you're going to see people with headphones on. You're going to see people that play video games. Kids nowadays are having social problems connecting at school because they've spent their entire lives growing up in a bubble. And then we go into the workforce, and all of a sudden we're expected to know how to communicate with people and interact with one another when we're dealing with email, and there's always a barrier, right? Even in our relationships, it's unfortunate that this is where we're at, but this is where we're at. So it is crucial to acknowledge an objection, because acknowledging an objection is simply saying to the other person, I heard what you just said. I understand you. I see where you're coming from. So how do you do that? You would say simple phrases. They're just one-liner phrases. They go something like this: that's an interesting question, or I'm glad that you brought that up, or it's funny that you mentioned that, or it might be as simple as something as right? So anything like that tells the other person, the other party, I just heard what you said. All right, so that's very, very important. Always start there by acknowledging the objection. Number two, short response that satisfies the question. A lot of people make the mistake here of, when someone says, could you tell me a bit more about it? They product puke. Right? They go into a sales pitch and they think this is an opportunity to show off and explain how knowledgeable they are about their field or their industry or what it is that the subject is. This is not the time for that, okay? This is the time to satisfy the objection, and only do that. Maybe if you're booking an appointment, you're going to get to your presentation later. But if you're discussing this with somebody, satisfy the objection, all right? Don't try to be impressive. Don't try to be interesting. Be interested in what they asked and satisfy it specifically. So I'll give you a tangible example in just a second here. We'll come back to it. Number three, you have to end with a question. So, when you look at ending with a question, that question needs to move things forward. You can't just ask some random question out of the, just way out of left field. Go, hey, so why is the sky blue? Right? You don't do stuff like that. It has to be related. It has to move the process forward. So let me give you a real tangible example here of using that formula beginning to end. Let's say that you're making a call and you're trying to book an appointment so that you can share with another party what it is that your company does, or the service or the product that you provide. And and you're trying to book that time, and someone says to you, well, you know what, why don't you just give me the information on the phone? You ever get that, right? They're trying to get that information from you right away, and far too many people just go and give them the information, or they try to sound interesting, and then what happens is there's no reason for you to meet anymore. So here's how you handle that objection. Number one, acknowledge. So I'm glad that you brought that up, and that's it. That's all it is. And number two, then you satisfy that objection, and you tell the truth, and you keep it short. Very, very important, keep it short. So I'd say something like, you know, if I actually did do that to you, like try to explain it to you over the phone right now, I'd probably do you a big disservice, and I'd certainly do myself a disservice. So I'd like to do it right. Why don't we just get together, arrange time to get together, and then I can properly explain it to you, and you can properly ask me some questions, and we can go from there and see how it moves forward. So, end with a question. Would we be able to do that? Or so when can we get together? Move that process forward. Okay, so number one, I just say, now it's a great question, I'm glad you asked. Number two, satisfy the objection. If I did it, I'd probably butcher it, and I don't want to do that. I'd rather do it right. That's it. Okay, I'm not going to try to pique their interest or try to get them interested, so maybe they'll volunteer to sit down with me. No, I'm just going to satisfy the objection, tell them the truth, say it's not going to work. All right, if we do it that way, it's not going to work. Number three, end with a question. So say, I'd rather do it right, so why don't we just book a time where we can get together and I can give you the information that you're looking for, okay? Now, when you start this process at the very beginning, I just give you one objection. There are several different kinds of objections that you can get, but there's several different versions of an objection, but there's always a main objection. It's around time, like they're busy, or they don't have the time, or they want you to give them the information because they're trying to save time. You handle them all pretty much the same way. Okay, someone might ask a different question and challenge your credibility or your authority or anything like that, and you'd say, I'd like to give you an opportunity. I'd like to have an opportunity actually, to speak to that, and I don't want to do it over the phone because over the phone it doesn't work, right? So you basically got to sit down with a piece of paper and write down every single objection that you're fearful of, or that you haven't gotten, or you think you might get, or you're not sure how to handle. So this is how you put it into practice. You don't practice it live. You practice it outside of those situations by sitting down, getting concrete, and writing down objections that you think you're going to get. Number two, you have to come up with an answer for them and use that formula. Acknowledge it. Right, have a short response that satisfies the objection, and end with a question that moves the process forward. And then what you're going to do is go and practice that. Find a prospective client or a prospective person, ideal person that's a friend that'd be willing to help you out. And then sit down and say, would you mind role playing with me? Maybe it might be a coworker, maybe it might be a good friend of yours, and just test those things out and refine them and cross it out and rewrite it so that it's you and it makes sense. You'll find that you'll become better as you do this. Once you understand this, it is game over. You will not be afraid in any relationship. You can speak to what's really going on in that relationship. And I'm going to give you a very quick analogy, and we'll end it. So let's say that baseball. A really good batter in baseball bats 300 or 30% average, roughly. All right. That means that a good batter will miss 2 out of 3 times. So why does a good batter miss the ball 2 out of 3 times? It's because they have no idea what the pitcher is throwing. Serious, that's really all it comes down to. Because they know how to hit a curveball, they know how to hit a fastball, but they just didn't know that the pitcher was throwing it at that moment. See, if the batter knew what the pitcher was going to throw, they'd crush it every single time. They'd knock it out of the park every single time. That's what a good batter would do, right? Objections are like knowing that the pitch is coming. There's only a limited number of pitches, and if you prepare for each one, you're going to be that much more effective, and you're going to crush it every single time. Right? So I hope that helped. Get out there and put this to use and improve your skill set, become a better communicator, and focus on becoming a better version of yourself. So I'll chat with you guys later on the next video. Till then, take care.